we are excited because we're continuing this awareness of conversation. That's kind of what I keep thinking of it as, the awareness of healing last week, awareness of love this week. And
so it was the awareness of healing instead of what is healing.
Right.
And today it's the awareness of love instead of what is love.
Yeah. And part of that is our kind of delving into some of the differences between emotional love and love eternal. That's the ever ending quest, I'm going to say, for so many of us, that love, eternal and emotional love, sometimes gets a little tied up in knots for us, and we're not sure maybe what awareness we're in. Love is one of those topics that even when we find the center, the truth, the being love instead of thinking about love, we tend to kind of move in and out of what I'm going to say is knowingness. The mind wants so much to define it, and yet we really learn as we step more into awareness that love isn't something we learn. It's something that we already are. So love, being loved, as we unearth kind of the inner conflict around this, and maybe for some of us today, we'll be tapping into what may be preventing us from feeling that love is a fulfilling essence and part of our daily life. So one of the things I did do at the beginning of the year was I like to look at these, what are the most searched words? And love continues to be among the highest Google searched word, actually for the past 10 years. And in 2018, it was one of the top word searched. So that tells us that it's really on people's mind. And as I popped off of that Google search, it was interesting. A Martin Luther King Jr. quote popped up, and I was really touched by it. So I just want to read it to you to kind of start our discussion here. And it says, "This higher love, it's an overflowing love, which is purely spontaneous, unmotivated, groundless, and creative. The love of God, source, the universe, operating in the human heart." So it brings us into the conversation when we are willing to explore love purely as a spontaneous, unmotivated, groundless, and creative connection operating somewhere within this very intelligent vessel of ours. And then I'd love to explore emotional love and eternal love, just as I'm going to say more of the definition, and that's going to give us a platform. So
emotional love is defined as a subjective experience, which of course we know it's subjective, although actually everything being in awareness, and yet our perception of awareness has a level of subjectivity to it.
Yeah.
Emotional love being subjective is a quality of conscious experience by which we have the sensation or the mental impression that events are happening to us as we experience ourselves.
And that's a really key part of this emotional love concept. Sometimes when we look at emotional love just in the context of it standing alone, we are experiencing, again, something that is happening to us. And that's where we've perhaps left the awareness of love, and we're more sitting on that platform of what is love, right?
Correct.
And how do we, I'm going to say, do it? How do we do love? And so I want us to observe the subjective concept where love becomes the object of something versus this eternal love. This eternal love that so many beautiful scholars and prophets, when you hear Rumi speak on the topic of love through his poetry, and it's really never as the object of anything. It is this eternal love concept, which means that it is love where there is no time. There's no ending. It is love as infinity. There's no form and there's no container. So this question that we've proposed partly as the topic for today in the awareness of love thought form, we want to transition it. We want to grow it. We want to explore emotional love and then move into maybe the eternal love awareness.
Right. And the eternal love awareness is something that's become even more discussed today because with the advent of the internet and everyone being in touch with everyone, a lot of people who have been involved in and experienced their own near-death experiences, their life after death experiences, come back. And one of the key threads of commonality that they discuss is being in the experience of a love for which we have no words, a concept so broad without the emotion, without the attachment, without the lust, without the judgment, without the jealousy, something so comprehensive that I find that I can come closest to feeling it from listening to their attempts to convey, how do we say, the wordless through words?
Yes.
You have a way of saying that.
The wordless through words.
Okay, well, there we go. We've just said it twice. Through words.
And,
the wordless.
And you can imagine, I mean, for those of us who are familiar with Reconnective Healing, and we have a very wide range of global participants on this webinar, some who are familiar with Reconnective Healing and some who aren't, that experience that Eric has just described, this loving detachment, this all-knowing, this experience that, again, many people who have had what we call NDAs or near-death experiences.
NDEs.
NDEs. NDAs. That is something entirely
very
different.
Yes.
NDEs, they report. But here's my sort of bewilderment. When you've touched awareness of love and you return to emotional love, or I'm going to say love being the object of something, there is a loneliness. There is a longing. There is a fear that comes up because the chasm between being the object of this experience and being in awareness of love itself is so huge. So I want to talk about, again, I want to stay with emotional love for a moment because so many of us have people in our lives that really experience love only in this way. And I want to look at it as the human experience of love. It's the brain. The brain and the body are flooded with this wide range of hormones, right? Let's just look at the biology. And these really influence our behavior, our moods, even our health. So when we are in an emotion, and let's just stay with the emotion of love, our body produces all kinds of chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, estrogen, testosterone, oxytocin. It's almost as if these chemicals...
CBD, oops, maybe not.
More CBD maybe to smooth it out. But really, these chemicals are what some refer to as the great facilitator of life in human embodiment, which has many names. Sometimes even these chemicals are referred to as the cuddle hormones of our body, the trust hormones. I've even heard it referred to as the moral molecule. So here we are taking this emotional love to define the awareness of love or being in love and attaching it to the facilitator of our life, the cuddle hormone, the trust hormone, the moral. My sense of morality is rooted in this emotional love. And I think we're going to be extremely stuck in remorse, loneliness, fear if we're not able to grow that, if we're not able to transcend the pure understanding of this emotional love and help bridge it a little bit. So we're starting the conversation, continuing it, with what is love being sort of the background aspect of understanding and taking it into what is the awareness of love. How is love awareness healing itself, right? And what is the awareness of love as the healer? 3 really important roles that those of us in Reconnective Healing may be involved in. So it's very multi-tiered. Are you going to read my favorite quote?
I am. This is by Andre from Walking the Path of Compassion. Love is the sweetest melody of the soul, and anything can be a catalyst for that.
I think when we are looking at the awareness of love, willing to become aware of love itself, maybe even step into being love itself outside of the pursuit of wanting or needing love, then you become a catalyst for that. You become the igniting resonance, vibration, and coherency from that perspective. So I love what Amit is saying. That's from Walking the Path of Compassion. It's a beautiful series of essays. So we'll post that because I want you to remember that quote. It's a simple way to kind of take words, which we're about to talk about in a moment, and maybe create the experience of that being love concept.
So the discussion point is the awareness of love an action, not just a feeling? And I don't know that awareness is ever really an action. I believe it's
Right.
It's awareness.
And in awareness, we wouldn't really use the concept of being
Action.
in action in that particular way. We can be in active awareness, and that has a slightly different proponent to it.
Meaning, but that's active awareness is meaning that we are cognizant of our awareness to get higher and higher levels.
Yes.
When really, sometimes we talk about something called awareness, which is when we dissolve into awareness. We're in that place where we are not cognizant here so much. I describe it as you realize that you've been there when you come back from it. And then you let go, you dissolve into it, and suddenly you come back from it and you go, I was there again.
And I'm going to say you come back to it in your thinking awareness, not that you're actually really coming back to it, because it is actually where you exist.
It's outside of thought.
So let's stay a little bit longer. Love varies in how it's expressed and accepted. And that's an important part of the conversation. So I'm going to stay in feeling the emotional love before we move to the love eternal. And one of the ways that I think we explore this on a daily basis is that love varies in how it's expressed and accepted by others. What makes us feel loved? And that varies. And kind of seeking and searching for emotional love and connection in that way, we're offered many themes. And Gary Chapman wrote this book, The 5 Love Languages. And in it, he explains different ways people give and receive love on this emotional love platform. again, as the object, not so much as the awareness of it. But I want to just touch on those 5 kind of basic ways. Gary says that one of the 5 languages of love is words. And that is an important one for us to own the accountability of. We know that awareness has no words. We are very aware that when we are in awareness, there aren't many words yet. This is a language of love in our everyday life, words. The second one that he talks about is acts of service. So doing something, loving, doing something in the act of service on behalf of love. The third one he touches on is gifts. It is loving when I give you something or you give me something. That's another object that very much defines how on a daily basis we might look for love in our life. Spending time together.
Or looking to give love and looking to feel deserving of love. Yes. Is often accomplished both by giving
exchanging
to others.
Objects.
Right.
But this is from the giving of a gift in an object form, a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Spending time together. Now, that one I can see as being a language that has a lot of crossover where awareness lives, because when sometimes we find that special person, we could sit in time, space together, and there could be no language in the word form exchanged. And there is, again, that awareness that something greater than our emotional love is dancing with one another. And the 5th one is touch.
Excuse me.
Touch being a language of love. And we do really acknowledge that, especially in the healing realm. There are many processes where physical touch plays an important role. Perhaps somebody who is in a coma state, mm-hmm. and they don't have an awareness, sometimes touch someone who has a physical, I'm going to say, disability. Sometimes touch can ignite, but again, it's igniting the thinking awareness, the chemical biology. It's bringing about what we were talking about, this very important set of chemicals.
And how about stroking for newborns in the hospital?
Yes.
Newborns who are stroked from the beginning.
Yes.
Evolve at much higher and faster levels, even in their healing and their development, emotionally and otherwise, than those that are just left alone in incubators.
So again, this emotional version, Heart Touch, the Heart Touch Project, I love that. They work a lot in this realm using very basic ways in which there is
That's
a
right.
language.
You're right, Heart Touch.
Yes.
Heart Math.
No.
Heart Touch.
The Heart Touch.
Oh, I got those confused.
Well, no, right. So these are beautiful, and they are important.
And there's one other thing that listening to you talk about this brought up for me, which is the concept that I've heard before, that we don't necessarily so much fall in love with another person as it is we allow ourselves to experience love and experience love for ourselves in that other person's presence.
You are wanting so much to move us right into the awareness of
not
love.
Not yet.
So we want to I want to stay in this sort of in-between space so that we can, in some ways, it's validating and much easier once we recognize that the thinking awareness of love and this eternal awareness of love are something that we are constantly moving in between. It's important to know that, because in everyday life we are interacting, right? So I think our really kind of underlying point that we want to make is that these concepts of words, the act of service, giving gifts, spending time together, touching, as a form of emotional love are really beautiful, and they are really important. They are in a thinking awareness approach of love,
Mhm.
but they also involve risk, rewards, judgment, and kindness.
And if you're lucky, a few kisses.
But that's important because in that risk, reward, judgment, and kindness, we have the ability to be cognitively and cognizantly clear on our options, right?
Absolutely. We've come up with a few experiential moments, let's say, for today's interaction with one another. And so I want to begin with something that those of us who have attended the Reconnective Healing training programs are already familiar with. And if not, act as if, and it will sort of come along for us as we play with this. So what we talk about in Reconnective Healing is oftentimes opening our hands in what we call a modified position, the normal anatomic position of the hands, just modified, keeping your fingers a little crisp and firm, and allowing yourself to feel the frequencies of energy, light, and information. And we're sharing them with you right now, not even consciously or intentionally, but as we interact here, as you allow yourself to feel sensation, be it circulation or nerve sense or your skin or the temperature, you'll find that through that, with us, you're experiencing some of the reconnective healing frequencies. So taking that as a given, what I'd like you to do is picture an empty womb, not room, but womb. One that's waiting, one that's receptive, and place that womb maybe in the palm of one hand. Feel the frequencies in the other hand. Tune into your awareness. Just know that there's a womb waiting and ready. Now visualize yourself. And you can do this eyes open or eyes closed. I like to do it eyes open, but it's your choice. Visualize yourself in that womb. Visualize yourself as a fetus. What did you look like? Any way you visualize yourself would be fine. Visualize what you look like, maybe even what your face looked like as a fetus. How about your body? See yourself at any stage, maybe a really early stage, maybe an evolving stage. And let your hands move around a little bit. Feel the frequencies and tune into you. Tune into you, that fetus of you, as an awareness. And really, what does that fetus come about? But it's a manifestation of universal, I believe, eternal love. Hold that womb with you in your palm as you continue to play with these frequencies for a moment. Let's do this in silence for maybe another 15 or 20 seconds. Now we're going to slightly change the scene, so continue what you're doing. You're in that womb. I'd like you to visualize and allow yourselves, if this picture works for you, to feel your mother's hands caressing her belly with you in it. See the love that you are. See the love that you are and feel the love that you represent. If that scene doesn't apply to you, of your mother caressing her belly, you still represent love. So what I'd like you to do is go back to your earliest memories after having been born? What are your earliest memories? They differ for a lot of us. For me, I remember being bathed in what we used to call a bassinet. I don't know if you still call it that. I remember being in a playpen, a crib. I remember being diapered. However far your memories go back, your earliest memories of being with your family, your parents, your grandparents, those who played with you and loved you, just allow that to be the scene, whichever scene you want in your hand. Place this scene in your palm of being loved, fed, and cared for. I'm just flashing on my mother giving me baby food and telling me with a spoon coming at me to open the hanger and bring the food in. Whatever your memory is, place the scene in your palm and feel the frequencies as you interact with the scene and with the frequencies. What I'd like to do is play with this for the next 20 seconds, and I want you to notice and observe how your awareness of love may change. Now let's add another dimension. Let's allow ourselves, and this is nothing we can force, we'll allow it, we'll observe it, we'll notice it, we won't notice it, depends. So let's allow ourselves to slip into awareness. By that I mean, let's float this scene up somewhere in between your right hand and your left hand. Let it float, see it, watch it. Gradually, let's expand the distance between our hands. Stretch, pull, expand, and allow this scene to become a part of awareness. Let's disappear into it, leaving our cognitive consciousness and becoming a greater part of the overall awareness that bursts and comprises the universe. So again, for another 20 seconds or so, let's all float together. I'll let us know when it's time to come back. Observe what intensifies for you. Observe what changes or morphs. In what way does it do this? And where do you discover that you become aware of this, that you may feel this? Is it just in your hands, in your heart, in your head, in your ears, or somewhere else?
Okay.
That was nice.
And very sensorial.
Very sensorial.
I could feel the serotonin. I could feel the dopamine. I could feel all of the bodily kind of forces.
But we're going to change and
I
evolve
know.
that next time around in a little bit.
So, the reconnective healing frequencies always introduce awareness, no matter how tightly we may be holding on to thoughts and feelings and emotions. They are part of the point of engagement with this beautiful intelligence and bandwidth is that often it expands our awareness into such an awareness place that there is no room for thinking awareness to be front and center. And I always love observing as the thinking awareness almost without my control sometimes. I'm in control, but without my control, it just seems to slide softly into the background. And I'm being introduced yet to this other aspect of my essence that I so deeply cherish. Thank you. It's really beautiful. Okay, returning a little bit to, is love a personal state of being or just this emotion that we express? Again, it can become very personal, this idea of love. Mm-hmm. And Ram Dass expresses love awareness this way. I'm going to read you this quote from Ram Dass. You need to read this.
Loving awareness witnesses the incarnation of a plane of consciousness different from the plane that we live on as egos, though it completely contains and interpenetrates everyday experience.
Everyday experience.
Everyday experience. Now, I met Ram Dass. I was at his home once. His niece, Liz Albert, makes Reconnective Healing necklaces for us. She used to, yes.
So how do you explain
interpenetration?
Yes. So it contains this ability to be able to take us outside of thinking emotional love. And that is, I think, where we really want to head. We want to head into what are some of the differences between needing and wanting love? How can we move beyond, not move beyond, how can we allow the needing and wanting of love to evolve in us, as us? And I think that this is a good bridge. It's the bridge that we can take right in this moment.
So, but I like in this statement, I just want to go back to it for a moment. When Ram Dass says, loving awareness witnesses the incarnation from a plane of consciousness that's different than the plane that we live on as ego, he's saying it witnesses it from a different plane. And yet, that awareness is also carried with us day in and day out. That's the interpenetration of that awareness, which is something interesting also, because you see, the reconnective healing frequencies for me interpenetrates my day. And yet, I strive to become more and more cognizantly or consciously aware of them. I'm not always that, but in my knowingness, they're always there.
You are that.
With me.
Right.
We are that. And now we're playing with awareness of that, awareness of healing, awareness of love. It's the awareness period. And so I'm also working on my own awareness, because sometimes I find it's very easy for me to fall back into automatic.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you just even from the start of this discussion, the awareness of awareness and love in this space has allowed a certain level of new clarity, and I'm going to even say cognitive coherence to be in my system. I can feel awareness wanting to be the primary, and the language sort of starting to fall into the background. So much of what we have to do on a daily basis is communicate through words, a process and an intelligence that doesn't exist where words are its, I'm going to say, vessel or point of engagement. So there is a lot of attention often on moving in between finding that. And refreshing.
Now, I like what you're going to talk about next, so if I can just start that.
Would
turn
you
it over to
please?
Jillian is going to talk about something that we were both made a little bit more aware of this morning, which is we are geared in a thinking mind to always or often have our attention on becoming something. Becoming something for someone else. And sometimes just becoming something for ourselves. But often the becoming of something is geared toward how it will be seen and perceived by someone. So what would you like to talk about with
Yeah, needing and wanting to be in a future state, yet out of reach, right?
that? A future state that is out of reach.
Correct.
It's a future state that seems often always just out of reach that we're striving toward, but we're not in it.
Right. We want to be a better version in some way, and we want someone else to be a better version, all before we allow the awareness of love to be recognized or to be in recognition of it. And that's that doing state that we seem to always fall short of, that leaves us not in the aha moment, but often in a state of disappointment.
Because this state, to put it in more everyday phrases that we often hear someone saying, you fell in love with me one way and now you want to change me. We often are looking to change ourselves, which doesn't always allow ourselves to fully appreciate and embody ourselves. And we are often looking for others to change as well, which means that we're spending, the more time we focus on that, the more time we're spending in the future instead of in the present, which doesn't mean that it's not a good idea to strive towards evolution of the future. Yet, if we allow ourselves to do that striving while we exist in the present, I believe we benefit far more greatly.
Yeah. So if we're engaged in trying to become, then in a sense, we're in that doing mode, something that we need to achieve, something that we need, that we want. And it's not that we give this up. It's not from a space of giving up being active in the world. When we introduce the approach of reconnective healing around this awareness of love, but it's that we touch this being love where we get to release trying to find the feeling of love, and we get more comfortable with the awareness that love is the being that we already are. It's where the eternal love of infinite, formless expression. It's void of a future. It's void of a past. It's even often void of a feeling, right? And the next exercise that we're going to do is to kind of explore what happens when we're in the state of eternal love, the infinite, formless expression, where there's no recognition of a past, a future, but most interestingly, sometimes until we're kind of back in active awareness, thinking awareness, or passive awareness, there often isn't even a feeling. There's little thought in the expression of what we experience as awareness rather than when we're in object love, where we're focused on needing or wanting to feel loved, be better in love. And really, I think that's where thoughts conspire conflict, sort of that space where we need to do something out of this preconceived, unfulfilled future.
And it can, in a way, limit or even prevent us from experiencing love's fulfillment as love itself. Rupert Spira had a daily quote. Would you like to share that with me?
No, you read that.
Okay. Thought doesn't know truth. It dissolves in it. Feeling doesn't find love. It merges in it. Perception doesn't see beauty. It dies in it. Rather interesting. Rupert Spira has some amazing insights. And for those of you who are not familiar with him and would like to look him up, just a quick spelling of his name. Rupert is Rupert. Last name is Spira, Spira.
So just the concept of perception doesn't see beauty. It dies in beauty. How does perception die inside of beauty? This is something I want to leave it out there for you to ponder and sit with in your imagination. Perception dies in beauty. There is such a reverse truth to so much about awareness, where the intelligence of the reconnective healing language lives, that sometimes we have to sit with themes that are outside of the language in which we organize our daily life and allow that non-duality. That's something Rupert spends a lot of time in expressing, non-duality.
Yeah. And it's not always the way that we would express it, the words that we might choose, but the words that he chooses encourages and entices us to explore and allow our awareness our cognizant awareness to grow.
And of being love itself. That's really, I think, at the root. That is the bridge that we walk over. How do we move from feeling love to being love itself? Especially when heartbreak can be so overwhelming. This is a ladder that we get to climb when we are feeling so heartbroken and so overwhelmed with heartbreak. Where does being love fit in? And is the awareness of love really the same as some of the themes around forgiveness? Because love doesn't think. The awareness of love doesn't imagine someone or something is out to get us. That's our idea of emotional love, right? Love doesn't determine you are the right partner or you're the wrong partner. Love sort of works together. It takes responsibility for being itself. So it forgives and allows other people's actions to be their process and journey.
Love forgives, and that forgiveness allows us to experience greater and greater love.
Because it doesn't take anything personally.
Right.
There is no personal object. There is no object when we are in the awareness of love, even when we are brokenhearted. And sometimes even hurt is a miraculous thing. Even hurt is a miraculous thing. I'm going to read you something that was sent to me by someone called Amir. I'm not going to go any further, but this is what he says about this. He says, even the hurt in you is a miraculous thing. It is a searing experience, which is awareness, which is life, which is love. There is no need to fear or damn, or worst of all, hate it. There's no need to hate it. It is more beautiful even than what's pretty and pleasurable, isn't it? Because in it is the spark of love. How could you hold someone if you've never been hurt or brokenhearted? You wouldn't even know what it meant to be held, would you? So only when you light the spark of blessing the hurt in you experiences can love really arise as awareness. So Let's go into this experiential
But
moment.
I like one thing.
Only one thing?
No, I like a lot of things. Love doesn't think. It doesn't imagine someone or something, as we talked about, is out to get you. I like this next part. Love doesn't determine that you are right or your partner is wrong. Love works together. It takes responsibility. Love forgives and allows other people's actions to be their journey. Love as being love. As you said, my love, doesn't take things personally.
No. And this is the growth, perhaps, that the precipice of the next stage of evolution humanity is embarking on is really touching. Part of what you hear in Solomon, and most of the time when you are in a reconnective healing exchange, you are able to touch that loving detachment in such a clear and profound way that the entirety of this idea that causes us to pause and recognize when we are taking something hurtful personally, that we are no longer in the awareness of love, that we are in emotional love, which has its place in everyday life. It has its place. Again, it is where the chemicals of our body are able to produce emotion. And this is key. We certainly want to be able to exchange on a daily basis with people using emotional language. This is recognizable. So we are walking two paths and merging them with understanding and awareness. Yes?
Yeah. So let's go into another experiential moment where we're going to walk in through one door and maybe step out through another. So again, let's bring our hands into a natural modified normal position, normal anatomic position, balanced, comfortable, easy, a little crisply held. Feel the sensations of whatever you like to feel. And in this space, in this awareness between your hands, think of someone you may have had a little tiny crush on as a child, a young child, even maybe your first boyfriend or girlfriend. How old were you? 2, 3, 5? Maybe you were older, maybe teenagers. Visualize them. How old were they? See you and them together. What did you look like? Feel these frequencies. What did they look like? Maybe you even have a memory of the color of their hair or their complexion, or maybe your memory allows you to simply experience them energetically, maybe not visually. Whatever your awareness that you are in thought about this, let that be. And play with these frequencies. As you do, experience your awareness, your recollection, your memory as best as you can. The universe knows who they are. You're interacting with the person that you are intending to. As you work with them, maybe picture them smiling, seeing them looking at you. Feel them feel your love. Now let's stretch and pull and play with these frequencies. Allow that concept of them, that awareness of them to be between your hands Stretch and pull your hands a little further away and just allow you and them to meld into these sensations of love and warmth. Realizing that as you see, feel, or otherwise experience the love in them, you see, feel, and otherwise experience that love in you. Play with this for 10 seconds, and then I'm gliding us in a little more deeply. And as you play with them, see, imagine, feel them looking at you. And as they look at you, see and feel the love. Allow yourself to be receiving the love from them in this interaction. Receive the love they are giving and let them receive the love that they are also receiving. And what I'd like to do is combine this. So stretch, pull, and play for another 10 or 15 seconds before we move forward. Now, allow all of these scenes and people that represent your essence, that represent you as love, to be suspended in between your hands as love intermingling. You as a fetus, you as a child, your mother or your father, your first love, and the love of your life. Someone who is in your life now, if there is someone, and now disappear their faces. Feel them smiling lovingly at you, and yet disappear their faces. Disappear into the scene. And if there may be anger or resentment on certain levels in these or any of these relationships, we don't have to deny that. Acknowledge that to yourself, but let's not focus on it. Instead, look for the love in them. Hear them when they may have had laughter. Feel their smile. Smile back, essence to essence, love to love, and allow forgiveness to permeate. You don't have to forgive them forever if you don't choose. You can pick up your resentment if you like later on. You may not want to, but right now, let forgiveness and love permeate. Let it become the dominant and the sole presence in this interaction. Play with the frequencies. And let's now disappear into awareness of this. Let's explore what ultimately is the awareness of this beyond consciousness. Let's play in this for the next 20 seconds or so. Now, while you're doing this, picture a door. Allow this door to open. Walk through the doorway into wherever it leads. You don't even have to see where it leads. What do we feel? What do we notice? What do we observe? What do we experience? What do we see? Maybe it's nothing. What do we become aware of? Let's step in this space and let's see what comes to our awareness right now for another 10 or 15 seconds. And if we're still finding that the pictures are strong and the thoughts are strong, float this scene further between your hands, pull your hands further apart. Allow the faces to disappear the names, disappear the settings, disappear the memories. Expand the distance further and further. Allow the scene to become part of awareness now, or maybe you will later. Leaving our cognitive consciousness and becoming a part of the greater universal awareness that bursts and comprises the universe. Observe what changes, what morphs, what intensifies, and where and how you become aware of it. Realizing that you are both the healer and the healing. You are the transformation. No beginning, no end. As they say in Hebrew, Ein Sof, it's the limitless. Let go of the pictures and become more fully who you are, who we are. Let's play in the field of awareness. Okay?
Yeah. I'm going to talk about Ram one more time.
Okay.
Ram Dass says, I love you. No matter how rotten you are, I love you because you are part of the manifestation of Source, God, the universe. In that heart mind, I, Ram Dass, am not Richard Albert. I'm not Ram Dass. Those are both the roles that I play. I look at those roles from that deeper I in the heart mind, and I am not identified with my roles. They are like costumes or uniforms hanging in a closet. I am the reader. I am the father. I am the yogi. I am a man. I am a driver. Those are all roles. So if we know that the people, the places, the identities that we are in our everyday life are simply an object of our experience, then we can lovingly consider the idea that as love, being love, is a far more optimal, conscious, observable experience than searching, looking, needing, doing anything in order to establish the connection and love of our role, I, to anything or anyone in our daily life. So when we consider how we possibly can find love in chaos that we live in, we want to consider that chaos that we are in any given moment or situation is simply an object of our mind.
And I actually find the chaos to be yet an opening that allows us to discover love where the seeming order we've set up around our lives
Yes.
may not have left that opening available for us.
And sometimes that's where hurt and brokenheartedness inspires us to leave the object, step where we already are in the awareness of being, so that the cells of our body can vibrate more coherently. That is where the intelligence of the reconnective healing frequencies deposits you, gives you without any need to do anything. Just receive the awareness of it. It simply catapults you there without needing your permission. So part of the exercises here, requiring.
Right.
Eric likes the word requiring your permission.
No. Oh, without requiring permission.
Yeah,
Reconnective healing frequencies
Yeah.
work without requiring permission. Sometimes we say without your permission, but that's not really
That's
accurate because it always has our permission at the highest level, but it doesn't require our cognizant permission. It doesn't require the permission of the ego.
Right.
And when we love, do we vibrate coherently? That's a beautiful question. I really believe that, feel that, know that love is a coherence. Love is a coherence.
And a vibration. And there is the absence of fear. So when we leave the question of how do we find love, what is love, and we experience awareness as love, there can be no presence of fear in that state, in that experience itself, that understanding itself. And again, we are somewhat aware of reality. We know that the messaging that we are given through words and news and social media and dreams, the brain, the mind will always present the story and the option of the fear story. Our bodies will be very obedient. And when we allow the story to become a mental, I'm going to say loop, endless loop, then we can expect emotional love to consistently feed us the risks and the rewards. But I think knowing this, where we can leave the thinking of what is love behind and simply explore, observe, notice, and be love as an option, we are able to, I think, further the discussion and certainly open this portal, this doorway to a deeper understanding of the intelligence of God, love, and the universe, and the language of energy, light, and information, the language of the reconnective healing experience in a fuller, deeper, more comfortable, accessible way. Yeah.
So before we answer some of the questions, and the questions are coming in not just here on the chat line, but also on the internet. I'm picking them up on my phone. You want to handle that? No? Here? We have 2 assignments for this week. I'm giving you assignments. I'm breaking our usual pattern and giving you 2 assignments. They're optional. They're up to you. But I suggest assignment A is to float in the imaging of a healing space with someone you are holding long-term, deep anger or resentment toward, I'm suggesting that you float in a space with them.
It doesn't have to be someone. It could be a disease. It could be a situation. It doesn't have to be a person.
But something that represents to you some form of an anger or resentment.
Anger.
I want you to float in that space. If you're a Reconnective Healing practitioner, facilitate a Reconnective Healing session for them, for you, for it. And if not, just during this time, float in this space and bring about an awareness of forgiveness. Forgive them, forgive it, forgive the situation. Secondly, float in a space that feels like self-healing for you. And if you're a Reconnective Healing practitioner, again, facilitate a self-healing. And during this time, whether you're facilitating a self-healing, whether you're not yet a Reconnective Healing practitioner and you're just floating in this space as best as you're accessing it now, what I'd like you to do
is notice how the energy, light, and information presents the opportunity of forgiveness without giving forgiveness a name. Notice what happens as you are floating around or inviting in whatever the anger, resentment, disease, disability, disappointment. Notice how your interaction with the energy, light, and information presents what you might refer to as forgiveness without having to say, I am now focused on forgiving the situation. It isn't a mantra.
No, and let's let go of the specificity. You don't even need to know what the forgiveness is about. You don't need to consciously know what you're forgiving, who you're forgiving. You may just be aware that you feel at times anger jump up, that there's resentment somewhere within you. Just float in the consciousness of forgiveness, knowing that that forgiveness knows where to go, how to get there, and what to do, and knowing that forgiveness is a benefit for everyone, ourselves included. We are not, well, sometimes we view forgiving someone as letting them off the hook. It's actually allowing us freedom to move forward, as well as allowing them. What they do with the forgiveness they receive is their choice. What we do with it is our choice and our potential.
Right.
So, shall we move into a few questions?
Yes.
Alrighty. I've got some questions floating in here. And let me back up to the beginning of them. Here we go. I'm not quite understanding loving detachment. What can I do to feel this?
Lars, this is such a good question, because when we use words and we put loving and detachment together, the thinking mind says, oh, that's an oxymoron.
Because we think of detachment so
physically.
often as, well, we also think of detachment as not caring.
Correct.
And it can be really at its highest level anything but that.
So one of the beautiful things that happens in the experience of interacting with the frequencies that you might notice is, as you interact, something about your attachment to everything, to yourself, to your surrounding, to your cognitive thinking, to what you know of up, down, left, right, seems to reorganize itself. It seems to become infused with a new level of formlessness, where really in some ways there is no definition for the word attachment, because you have become, in this interaction, wholeness. So in wholeness, there isn't anything other than love. There isn't anything other than a whole awareness where you are, if you want to consider the concept of attachment, you're attached to everything. So in loving detachment to a thought, a feeling, an anger, a obsession, an addiction, whatever it may be, we become the entirety of inclusiveness, I'm going to say, all there is, rather than a focus on any one aspect that we are attempting to bring about something new, something more. So the doing falls away.
We're often challenged to take the meaning of a word or a concept at its lowest level, its most base level, or to look for the higher. Is the expression God-fearing, or is it the true actual translation of the word, which is to be in awe of God? Is it fear of the unknown, or in wonder and awe of the unknown? And in the concept of attachment,
which only exists in this emotional love
is it
realm, not the eternal love realm.
Yeah, in the form and the word of attachment, can it mean simply an inner connection and a freedom? Or does it often mean, at its more base level, a neediness in that attachment? Now let's take a more earthly example that many of us have heard, the expression that a brain surgeon doesn't perform surgery on their own child. Does that mean there's no love? There's absolutely love. But love at that level often focuses in on a neediness to get it right, a concern, an attachment, which limits freedom and creativity and the natural spontaneous flow and artistry that they could more readily bring to another patient. And in this situation, understanding and releasing from attachment, understanding that when we release from certain aspects and levels of attachment, what it's really doing is allowing us to bring a higher level of gift in that interaction.
When you
this
say
is another person, that's another person.
Okay, but it's a really good segue into what Lars is speaking about. When we say, I would describe myself as love itself, but I feel empty anytime I don't feel loved by people I care about. Why is this contradiction a part of it? And this is the answer.
This is from Helene in Montreal.
Right. But it answers in some ways and speaks to Lars' question about loving detachment. And that's what I think really is a very wonderful synergy of these two questions.
Because she's attached in this question to receiving love.
Correct. I would describe myself as love itself, but I feel empty anytime I don't feel loved by people that I care about.
Conditions we set up for ourselves to feel love and to feel fullness.
That's the attachment.
Right.
And Lars, that's the attachment we're talking about. When we become love itself, the experience of someone else about us, or even us them, isn't present. It isn't a part of the exchange. There isn't an I once we become it. And so we offer the concept of loving detachment really to express this exact situation.
Now, Teresa from Uruguay says, how do you find tough love? You know, tough love is an interesting concept, and it can be taken to extremes, and I don't always fully appreciate it or abide by it. Tough is, again, we're back to the subjective. What one might consider tough, another might not. In prison situations, it can be very extreme with what they consider tough love, and I don't always find it really loving as much as I would find what I often see exemplified in those situations as more a need for control. And that happens in various types of institutions, mental health institutions, hospitals, otherwise. Now, where does something become tough? Where it becomes intentionally supposedly for the benefit of the other person, but it might be a little less uncomfortable. So what might be perceived as tough love by a child might be when their parent says, no, you can't have chocolate tonight. You've had it the last 3 days. So it becomes subjective, but the concept of tough love essentially is not saying yes to everything because you know that certain yeses may not be for the benefit of the person asking. That's how I would perceive the concept of tough love.
I actually, I'm not sure tough love exists as the awareness of love itself.
No, I don't.
And being a parent, when I find a situation with my son, who is an adult at 28, where I have the choice between expressing something with an opinion of attachment or standing in the awareness of that greater, fuller being love itself, what I have noticed is often in the resonance, without even the words, something in the entrainment of my being love itself illumes, attracts. I become, in some ways, that Bluetooth, that parable space and place where love itself exists. And often we become, as we talked about, more coherent. We become a more coherent vessel and therefore more coherent in the decisions that we are making for ourselves in our everyday life. And, it's a little different when you have to choose with a young, small child about when to, I'm going to use tough love or create a consequence based on a behavior. These are all emotional love, thinking love choices, and they play an important role. But past that child, parent, caregiver responsibility, I'm not so sure that actionable tough love is effective on any universal level at this time. So, we get to explore that.
So Dave from Chicago says, I often find myself speaking in frequencies, I know you love that, with nature, plants, and animals. There's such a deep feeling that explodes in me that if I know this is the eternal love you were talking about, well, then it's perfect and unconditional.
Correct. And you absolutely have touched a space and a place where you have recognized and placed yourself in a relatable understanding of this experience. And it is perfect. And how can we bring that same relationship with the awareness of love to our everyday life with all situations involving not just plants and animals, but people and places and memories and responsibilities and accountabilities. This is our great opportunity.
And this brings something to mind for me, is that something that I believe Jillian and I both observed in our training programs. There are those of us who feel in various ways at ease or not at ease with meeting new people, with people in general. And oftentimes we find that we are more comfortable interacting with horses or dogs or animals or just young children who don't question us. And I believe that if we find that we are much more comfortable with one group than another, it may very well be a calling or an invitation by the universe for us to step a little bit outside of our comfort zones and say, there's something for me to learn. I'm not comfortable with animals. Let's step in and explore that development. If we're not comfortable with people, but we're comfortable with animals, then let's step in and explore that interaction with people. Let's recognize that we are all here as one in varying forms. And part of what I believe we're here to discover love with is how to share it between all of these forms, our own form included.
As awareness.
As awareness?
As awareness. So you are in a discussion where we are taking you on two important tracks. Again, it is realistic to acknowledge and accept that emotional love is part of our human embodiment. It is part of the embodied system that we are. It isn't something we need to dismiss, push away, negate, eliminate, but we have more at our control panel than just emotional love. And that is the discussion around awareness of love as love itself and becoming love itself. They are there for you to integrate. They are there for you to access and eternalize and internalize. And the reconnective healing process and approach can be very useful in and with that exploration. Eyes open.
One more. When we want to be a better person, this is a two-part question. When we want to be a better person, what is it we are measuring to? And isn't this a part of becoming better people for one another? To be a better service, be in awareness and of charity and unconditional love. So
Exactly.
What is it that we are measuring to when we want to be a better person, and aren't we becoming better people for one another?
This concept of futurizing rather than acknowledging that we are as we are. We are awareness. Places us in a position where we have to think about how to become something different than being in awareness as love. It actually takes us from being into that place of doing. And that's absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong with being a part of becoming something we are wanting and needing. We just want you to distinguish the difference, the point of engagement when we allow ourselves to be love itself. We are in service to everything in the greatest form that we potentially have the ability to offer as resonance and frequency. I have a girlfriend who is always challenged by not being able to do enough for others because she has established an incredible space in nature where everything is grown biodynamically. She lives completely with the resources of that which is produced by Earth itself. And this requires a lot of maintenance. It doesn't require her necessarily to go and volunteer at a local shelter. So as we tend to the concept of what is love, how are we contributing as a vessel of being love itself, we have to consider these two tracks of doing in order, as I think this beautiful author kind of describes these 5 tenets, Gary Chapman, words, offering kind words to someone. That's loving from this particular plane. Acts of service, giving gifts, spending time together. This is an offering that comes in our active becoming, not necessarily in the awareness of being love itself exclusively. Both tracks are important, but one does not define the other.
Right. So I believe that, to just respond a little further to this one last question, when we want to become a better person, what are we measuring it to? I'm measuring it to me. Where was I yesterday? How could I have done better? Not from a judgment perspective of good or bad, but in a way that would have been more in sync with my heart. How could I have come more from my heart, my integrity? So my comparison is an internal referral system. It's just within me. It's not comparing me to my neighbors or anyone else. And yet, the second part of the question says, isn't us becoming better people something for one another? Of course it is, because every evolution within ourselves is for us and is for everyone, because we are a part and in touch with absolutely everyone.
And one of the ways to become better people for one another is expressing ourselves as present awareness, not futurizing ourselves or condemning our reflection of our past. One of the ways we become oneness, acknowledged as present awareness, is to step out of the importance and the platform of doing and becoming and acknowledge being and present being of awareness. So they're really complementary in some ways. And I hope that that question will kind of resonate a little bit for you as a way to look at another approach. We are open to sharing everything that we are expressing and becoming an opportunity to grow together.
So Anna just asked us if we will just include a couple of these closing announcements, which of course we will. The next level 2 programs, the live immersion, there are very few of them. They're in select locations in 2019. We'll be going, I'm very excited, we'll be going to Melbourne the first weekend, Melbourne, Australia, February 1 through 3. We'll be in Palm Springs the 5th through the 7th of April, and we're excited about that because there'll be 2 tracks. You want to tell them about it?
Yeah, there are 2 beautiful opportunities. Many of you are part of our what we call alumni community, and we are, for the first time ever, creating a simultaneous experience where our alumni will be a part of the live immersion weekend happening in the same location with a completely different set of wonderful experiences,
classes, experiences, discussions, led by our teachers of many years who've been with us. By the way, if you're wondering who is an alumni, if you've attended any of our training programs, you are an alumni.
And we're excited about the opportunity for the entire month of January. If you do decide that you want to come and hang out in this alumni community and connect with people that I think will be really open to sharing their experiences over 25 years. I think that you will have a great opportunity to utilize some of each other's experiences, and we'll be there, obviously. You also will be given, with the receipts of your alumni ticket, the opportunity to pay forward with your alumni 33% discount. Someone who might want to attend the full one experience. So in case you don't want to leave your husband, your wife, your friend, your neighbor,
your lover,
you can bring them along and gift them your alumni discount so that they can be a part of the weekend with you, at least coming along with you. So that's something you got in an email.
Right. So as we said, Melbourne is February 1 through 3. Palm Springs is April 5 through 7. Germany, Stuttgart, Germany, August 30th through September 1st.
Registration has not opened for that yet.
Yeah, so when you go to the And when you go to the website and look it up, it's going to say it's $11,101,000, blah, blah. When you see all those ones, it just means registration didn't open yet, but it should open in the middle of this month, I believe, correct? Prague from the Czech Republic will be October 4th through 6th. Now, there'll be also 2 other live immersions that Jillian and I will not be teaching at, but they'll be taught by our teaching team. One of those will be taught entirely in Spanish in Madrid, and that will be March 2nd through 3rd, taught by Margarita Alvarez. And another will be taught in Italy, entirely in Italian, by Guglielmo Poli. And Guglielmo will be teaching there in Milan, April 27th through the 28th. So our next live events are the Ignite event that Jillian talked about in Palm Springs, April 5 through 7. And I will be doing another live energy interaction, February 7th.
Love spending this time together. We so appreciate you making the 90 minutes to be a part of this conversation. It's continuing to expand. It's really growing us. And we hope that you are finding something useful and loving to bring into your awareness.
I am, and you? Yeah. I think that there's nothing we ever do that is completely altruistic. We gain from the giving. Mm. And I know that we do. And I know that you discover that you do also. So thank you for letting us share together. And thank you for coming into our living room today with us.
Yeah.
Sharing our fire. And we'll see you again soon.
Have a beautiful, beautiful day.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.